There is a specific, suffocating sensation that you might know very well. It usually happens in a moment of conflict, or perhaps a moment where a boundary has been crossed. You feel the heat rising in your chest. You feel the sharp clarity of injustice. You know logically that you are right to be upset. You open your mouth to defend yourself, to speak your truth, to perhaps even raise your voice for the first time. But instead of a roar, your throat closes, your voice cracks. And then, against your will, the hot sting of tears fills your eyes. You stand there, flooded with frustration, not just at the situation, but at yourself. You wanted to be strong. You wanted to be formidable. Instead, you feel small and exposed. The person in front of you might soften, thinking you are sad, or they might roll their eyes, thinking you are irrational. But inside, you are not sad. You are furious. Yet your body has betrayed you, translating your fire into water before you could even light the match. This experience is incredibly common among sensitive, deep-feeling people, yet it is rarely spoken about with compassion. We often label it as weakness. We tell ourselves we are too emotional or that we cannot handle confrontation. But this automatic physiological response is not a flaw in your character. It is a highly sophisticated, learned mechanism. It is a pathway your nervous system laid down long ago to keep you safe. Let us explore this phenomenon, which we might call the anger to sadness conversion. To understand it, we have to look at what anger actually is and what you were taught about it. In its purest form, anger is simply energy. It is the body's way of saying no. It is the biological signal that a boundary has been violated or that a need is being unmet. It is protective, active, and mobilizing. However, for many of us, particularly those who grew up in environments where emotions had to be polite, anger was not safe. Perhaps you witnessed anger being used as a weapon, loud, destructive, and terrifying. Or perhaps you were the good child, the peacemaker, the one who was praised for being easygoing and accommodating. In either case, you absorbed a silent rule. Anger breaks connection. Anger is dangerous. Anger leads to rejection. The human need for attachment, to be loved and accepted by our caregivers and peers, is more primal than the need to be right. So, when a surge of anger rises in you, your internal alarm system triggers. It perceives this anger not as a useful tool, but as a threat to your safety. Your brain screams, "If I show rage, I will be unlovable." Or, "If I show rage, I will be destroyed." So, in a split second, faster than conscious thought, your system performs a conversion. It takes that high-voltage energy of anger and dampens it. It flips the switch from fight to freeze or submit. Tears are a signal of vulnerability. In the biological language of mammals, crying says, "I am not a threat. Please don't hurt me." By crying, your body is instinctively trying to de-escalate the situation. It is trying to secure your safety by making you appear harmless, even though your internal reality is screaming for a fight. This mechanism was likely brilliant when you were younger. It kept you connected to the people you needed. It protected you from conflicts you were too small to win. But as an adult, this old wiring becomes a cage. It leaves you feeling helpless in moments where you need your power the most. You are left with the damp, heavy cloak of sadness when what you needed was the shield and sword of your own boundaries. When this conversion happens repeatedly, it begins to erode your sense of self. You might find that you struggle to say no without over-explaining or apologizing. You might feel a chronic, low-level exhaustion, which is the sheer physical cost of holding back a tidal wave of energy every day. You might even begin to doubt your own perception of reality, wondering if you are just being dramatic because your body is crying, even when your mind knows a real injustice has occurred. It is important to understand that the tears are not the problem. Crying is a healthy release. The problem is the mislabeling of the emotion. When we cry, we tend to collapse inward. We retreat. We assume the posture of the defeated. But anger requires an upward, outward movement. It requires us to stand our ground. When every spark of assertiveness is doused with tears, we start to believe that we are incapable of protecting ourselves. There is also a profound loneliness in this experience. When you cry during a conflict, the other person often pivots to comfort you, or perhaps to pity you. They might say, "Don't cry," or "It's not that big of a deal." They are responding to the sadness they see, not the anger you feel. You are completely misunderstood in that moment. You don't want a hug, you want to be heard. You don't want reassurance, you want change. But because the signal you sent was sadness, the response you get is comfort, and the original issue remains unresolved. Reframing this experience starts with changing your relationship with anger itself. We need to decouple anger from violence. Violence is behavior. Anger is a feeling. You can feel intense, fiery anger without ever raising your voice, slamming a door, or insulting another person. Clean anger is simply clarity. It is a firm voice saying, "This is not acceptable to me." It is the spine straightening. It is the sudden realization that you deserve better. Think of anger not as a monster living in the basement, but as a guardian standing at the gate. For a long time, you have been telling this guardian to go away because you were afraid he would scare the visitors. So every time he tried to do his job and warn you of an intruder, you made him put on a costume of sadness. You forced him to weep so that he wouldn't look dangerous. But his job is not to be dangerous. His job is to keep the house safe. You do not need to stop crying to reclaim your anger. The tears and the fire can exist together. In fact, for a while, they almost certainly will. You are rewiring years, perhaps decades of conditioning. The goal is not to become a stoic stone wall. The goal is to remain present with the fire, even while the water is flowing. There is a gentle practice you can try when you are alone and safe. It involves reconnecting the feeling of anger with the power of your voice, without the pressure of a real conflict. When you are by yourself, perhaps in your car or your bedroom, try saying the words, "I feel angry." Say it out loud. Notice what happens in your body. Does your throat tighten? Do you feel the urge to apologize to the empty room? If you can, try to say it a little louder. "I am angry." Allow yourself to feel the vibration of the assertion in your chest. You are simply naming a reality. You are telling your nervous system that it is safe to acknowledge this energy without collapsing. You might find that even doing this alone brings tears to your eyes. That is okay. Let them come. But keep speaking. "I am angry, and I am crying, and I am still here." Another shift you can make is in the moment of the wobble, that precise second when the throat tightens and the eyes sting. Instead of fighting the tears, which only adds tension to the system, try to ground your physical body. Press your feet hard into the floor. Feel the solidity of the ground beneath you. Your body is trying to float away into the safety of dissociation or sadness. Your job is to anchor it here, in the present, in your adult power. You might even find words to bridge the gap between what you look like and what you feel. If you are in a conversation and the tears start, you do not have to retreat. You can say, "I am crying because I am frustrated, not because I am sad." Or, "Please ignore the tears. I am very angry about this and I want to finish what I am saying." This is an act of immense courage. It reclaims the narrative. It tells the other person that your tears are not a flag of surrender, but a sign of how much this matters. It takes time to trust yourself with this energy. You might worry that if you let the anger out, it will destroy everything. But usually, the opposite is true. Repressed anger is what destroys relationships. It comes out as resentment, passive aggression, and sudden withdrawals. Expressed anger, clean and respectful anger, actually builds trust. It tells people where you stand. It allows them to know the real you, not just the pleasant mask you have worn to keep the peace. As you begin to allow this guardian back into your life, you might feel a new sense of vitality. The energy you used to spend suppressing your truth is now available for living your life. You might find you have more creative drive, more physical stamina, and a clearer sense of direction. The next time you feel that heat rising and the familiar sting of tears, try to meet yourself with compassion instead of shame. Remember that your body is trying to love you the best way it knows how. It is trying to keep you safe. You can thank it for that protection, and then, gently, let it know that you are ready to try something different. You are ready to be seen, not just as someone who can be hurt, but as someone who can protect themselves.
You are ready to let your anger speak,
Even if its voice shakes. What would it feel like to welcome your anger as a friend who has been trying to send you a message for a very long time? What if the tears are not a sign of your weakness, but the breaking of a dam that finally lets your own power flow through?